So you clicked on this video because you want to get better at Warzone 2. We're going to get straight into it, but before we start real quick, it would help a lot if you could like and sub, as any support is greatly appreciated, and it just helps me out a lot. So starting off, the movement in Warzone 2 is slower than Warzone 1, and that has definitely changed the meta here. This means you can no longer run around and rely on your movement and reaction time to win fights. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to play slower, but it does mean you have to play smarter and use more utility and tools to your advantage. With how slow people are playing the game right now, information is undoubtedly meta. Think about all the times you've noticed someone near you, and then when you go to look for them, you die to them sitting in a corner just waiting for you. And that's how so many people are playing the game right now. They hide in houses, and even if you're in a fight with them, they will stay crouched in that house, moving room to room, forcing you to push them, but you have no idea where they are. And that's why information is so important to gather before you fight them. You'll notice typically in games that as TTKs get faster and movement gets slower, information just becomes more meta. For example, in games like Rainbow Six Siege or Escape from Tarkov, majority of the fighting is just finding out where your enemy is rather than actually shooting at them, because when that happens, someone usually dies pretty quick. In games with potentially high TTK like those, it doesn't matter how good you are, if you run into a room with no info and the enemy sees you first, you're usually dead. There's a good amount of ways to gather info in Warzone 2, but my favorite has to be recon drones and bomb drones. These drones are one of the best ways in the game to get info, and I think they're pretty underrated. These drones are just OP, they both can see people through walls around you, and then the recon drone you can scan people with it and it'll track them for a little bit, and then the bomb drone you can literally just blow people up with. I highly recommend that you pick up as many drones as you can find, since that is completely broken. You can find them in general loot spawns and boxes. You can also find them in some shops, but with the way shops work now, it's kind of weird. It's kind of rare to find them in them. The rest of the tools you can use to gather exact locations on people are snapshot grenades, heartbeat sensors, portable radars, and UAVs. Snapshot grenades are a tactical equipment, and they scan enemies through walls when they blow up. Heartbeat sensors are a tactical equipment you can use to scan for enemies around you, but the big difference in Warzone 2 is they've been changed to have around 100 seconds of battery life, and they just disappear once it hits 0. Portable radars are a field upgrade you can find around the map. They're a small thing that you throw on the ground and it scans a radius around you. It's basically just a mini UAV. UAVs are more rare in Warzone 2 than Warzone 1 right now. You can buy them in shops, but each shop only sells one UAV, and I'm not sure if they restock. So just to make the point I'm making clear, always try your best to gather info on someone either before or while you fight them. But the problem is you don't always have the items that is covered to get an enemy's exact location, and that's when you're gonna have to get the info indirectly. So what does this mean and how do you do it? Getting info on enemy players indirectly means using methods that aren't meant to give you someone's exact location, or maybe aren't even meant to give you their location at all to help find them. This can be done by using normal equipment like grenades and flashbangs, or even picking up bounties just to get a general idea on where people are. For example, if you're clearing a building that you know a player is hiding in, use your nades and flashes in different rooms to check for someone hiding in there instead of peeking each room yourself. This narrows down the places the enemy could be hiding in and gives you a better idea of their location. Knowing when to use equipment to gather info can be a bit tricky because you don't want to waste it. Sometimes you can use a recon drone or UAV and end up not seeing anyone, but that's a bit rare since Warzone 2 has 150 players. I'd say to use info gathering tools when doing bounties, or you know for sure that someone is near you. Even the area around you being too quiet is a valid reason to use a drone or UAV, since this probably means people around you are hiding. Overall, knowing when to use your tools is up to you. If you think someone could be near you, it doesn't hurt to use your equipment because you're at least playing it safe. Getting your loadout is a bit more complicated in Warzone 2, but I highly recommend going out of your way to get it. Shortly after the game starts, you'll get a notification on your screen that says strongholds are open, and it will mark them on the map. The strongholds have bots around them, and you'll have to clear the bots to get inside the building and access your loadout. If a stronghold is marked red on the map, it means someone is currently taking it. The icon showing available strongholds on the map will also disappear during the match, but as long as you remember where the stronghold was, you can still go there and get your loadout. You can also get your loadout from random loadout drops during the match, but these come later into the match and are risky to go to. If you can't do any of these, you can buy the primary weapon from one of your loadouts from a buy station for 5,000, but this is only the weapon. You don't get the perks as well. So now that we talked about how to get loadouts, let's talk about the weapons you should be using. With guns being overall more balanced in Warzone 2, you aren't going to have to be using the absolute meta weapons to compete like you did in Warzone 1. There are many good ground loot weapons in Warzone 2 that can still compete in the late game. So I just say use whatever weapons you want, just make sure one of the weapons is fit for long range, whether it's a sniper or an AR with a scope or both, it's up to you. But if you are really set on fighting and using the absolute best weapons, I recommend going to this site called Warzone Loadout, where you can easily see the best class setups in the game, including the best tuning settings. This isn't sponsored or anything, the site is just genuinely really good and saves you a lot of time if you're looking for the best weapons in the game. As for the perks you should be using in your loadout, it's completely up to you, but I recommend the Spectre package as it's just the best all around. It has double time for movement, tracker and spotter for tracking and info, and ghost to keep you hidden. Spotter is a really underrated perk for Warzone 2 as it lets you see enemy equipment, field upgrades, and kill streaks through walls, which is just free info and can easily give away an enemy's position. This is the part of the video where I give random tips and ideas. Starting off, this one may seem obvious, but a lot of people get lazy and ignore it even though it's extremely important. If you really want to win, you need to always be ready and expect someone to be camping in a building when you go into it. Like I said earlier, people love playing Warzone 2 really slow and campy, so just being prepared when entering a building can really help. Next up is confidence. Staying calm and confident during the whole match is extremely important because you can easily make mistakes if you're not. Lack of confidence when fighting can even affect things like your aim. Think everything through while fighting someone and remember that you can always reposition to get an advantage. Don't let them keep you trapped in one spot. Some people are going to be against this next tip, but when you're shooting at someone close range, remember to jump at least once, even if you're standing completely still. Your character jumps so high in this game that if someone is shooting around your chest area, a simple jump will cause them to be shooting around your feet while you're in the air. The next tip is just me reminding you of how important it is to use your equipment like nades and flashes. If you have no equipment, pick up whatever you find to fill these equipment slots. Equipment is extremely useful, especially in early game, and I just see so many people leave them on the ground. I can't stress this enough, just pick up whatever equipment you find to fill those slots. And yes, even tear gas, okay? Tear gas is actually really good. Even if you find a proximity mine or claymore that you don't want, it's worth it just to pick it up and place it somewhere near you. Every bathroom in the game has a cabinet in it that can spawn at least 2 med syringes, but can also spawn other useful items like gas masks, self-revives, and revive pistols. You can use revive pistols to also revive yourself, by the way. And if you find more than one self-revive, it's worth using a backpack slot to carry an extra one so you can revive yourself multiple times if needed. If you quickly want to improve at the game or just bored while playing, I recommend traveling around the map and doing all bounty contracts you can find. This will quickly put you into fights and give you good practice of fighting campers, since many people get really scared and hide when you hunt them. For the final tip here, I'm going to quickly cover my thoughts on aim assist and whether it's worth switching to controller if you're a KBM player. I've played matches with both KBM and controller in between the making of this video, and I got a lot of wins on both. Aim assist is definitely good, but it's not broken enough to instantly make you a god tier player if you're already good at or used to playing keyboard and mouse like some might think. Using a controller is still something that takes time to learn, and you only ever get the full capability of aim assist once you get good at controller movement. It isn't some kind of cheat that'll carry any player regardless of skill level, but it definitely can be an advantage in some cases if you learn to use it correctly, so I just say give controller a try if aim assist is something you're worried about. Arguably the most important skill, positioning. All you need is good positioning to win games. A cracked player with good aim and understanding of positioning can ignore this whole guide and still easily get wins. Positioning is a form of game sense. This means it can't really be learned just from watching this video, but I can help you understand it and speed up your learning process. Positioning comes into play as soon as you jump out the plane. Wherever you're dropping to, you need to pay attention to the people around you and where they're landing and remember their positions. Try to constantly position yourself in places with cover, but this can sometimes be hard, so at least keep in mind where you should run to if you get into a fight. Always think about how you can position yourself to have an advantage during a fight. Keep in mind that as soon as you start using these tips, it'll become something you're so used to doing that you'll barely have to think about where to position yourself depending on certain situations. If you're randomly shot at, it's important to think about and learn how to quickly decide if you're going to shoot back or run to cover to heal up and reset. As the match goes on, constantly pay attention to your position in the zone. Do you want to head to the middle of the zone immediately and post up somewhere, or do you want to stay on the outside of the zone, moving with it as it closes so you don't have to worry as much about enemies behind you? Positioning gets more important as the game goes on, especially during the final circle where cover and other advantages like high ground are the most important since you don't really have an option to run like earlier in the match. Like I said before, the more you play and think about these kind of things, the easier and faster it'll be to make decisions. Thank you for watching, a like and sub would help out a lot. I also stream on Twitch, which will be in the description.